Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from the Daily Wire dated November 3rd. It says, How the Southern Poverty Law Center Poisoned Corporate America. It says, as the FBI cuts ties with SPLC, it's time for America's private sector to do the same. Yes, the SPLC is a horrible organization, and we're going to find out why. It says, when you think about corporate wokeness, what comes to mind? DEI and ESG policies might be the most prominent features or examples. Again, why am I reading a word that's not there? Just for good reason. But as someone in the industry of corporate engagement, helping investors use their financial influence to root out bias from America's biggest brands, we often find ourselves asking this question: who determines parameters? Wokeness is parasitical, and its most subtle and pernicious effects emerge by latching on to legitimate corporate policies and twisting them to serve political ends. Okay, I got to stop reading words that are not on the screen. Let's try to do better here. It says, among the most parasitical of these organizations is the Southern Poverty Law Center, or SPLC, an activist group formed in 1971 to combat the influence of Jim Crow, so had good intentions to start. It says the SPLC has gradually morphed into a group peddling the false equivalence between conservatives and hate groups. Case in point, the SPLC's infamous hate map. The SPLC would like you to believe that the map represents American hate in an image, with many of the groups on the map, such as the Klan, white supremacists, and the Westboro Baptist Church, being genuine hate groups. And yet, when you look at the list, you'll see some groups that decidedly aren't hateful. Alliance Defending Freedom, American Family Association, Focus on the Family, Moms for Liberty, and an Arizona-based nonprofit called Turning Point USA. Never heard of them. Who are they? Says the SPLC specifically lambasted TPUSA as hard right in June of 2025. They're not even close, and even smeared them as part of the political right's alleged efforts to enforce a social order rooted in white supremacy. So what this should teach you is that the SPLC does not know what white supremacy is. It says, let's be clear, the SPLC isn't giving you a hate list. This is a list of groups ranging from true extremists to normal conservative groups that the Southern Poverty Law Center would simply like you to believe are all hateful. That's correct. They're trying to set a narrative, and they've gotten people hurt. I don't know if this article is going to go into it because I haven't read it yet, but if you don't know about that, the SPLC's hate map has influenced people to go and actually try to kill conservatives. Just letting you know that. So it says, what matters right now is that some of America's biggest companies have used the list to guide their corporate policies. Brands as big as Meta, which is also, Facebook, Alphabet, that's Google, and Amazon have used the SPLC's hate list for everything from writing their hate speech policies, hate speech isn't a thing, by the way, to determining which charities they'll support via employee philanthropy programs. In the SPLC's eyes, a perspective granted legitimacy by some of the world's most prominent brands, groups like Turning Point, were indeed synonymous with hate. It's not about corporations approving of Charlie Kirk's death. To my knowledge, that hasn't happened. It's about corporations enforcing bias, discriminating against conservatives and Christian organizations, under the mistaken belief that this means stopping hate. If we are to move away from a society where people are shot for their political and religious views, this premise must be completely repudiated by America's private sector. We have some serious work to do. And again, I read a word that wasn't there. It doesn't say some, it just says we have serious work to do. Same point, but just pointing out the fact that I'm an idiot. And conservatives are spearheading that work and using their influence to hold companies accountable for relying on the SPLC's metrics. This isn't about politics at the end of the day. It's about getting back to business. It's almost impossible for a company to claim to have a serious policy on combating hate when the organizations that define hateful think that the KKK and Turning Point USA belong in the same category. And it says in parentheses, this is perhaps most evident with companies like Etsy, which apparently has a problem with SPLC-deemed hate groups like TPUSA, citing the SPLC and their hate policies, but less of a problem with literal witches that used Etsy to buy an actual hate hex to put on Charlie Kirk shortly before he died, because that's not hate speech. Says the Daily Wire's Michael Knowles recently told Congress, left-wing political violence is a serious threat to the marketplace of ideas in 2025. The Southern Poverty Law Center is only part of the problem. But as the FBI cuts ties with the SPLC, it's time for America's private sector to do the same. Corporate America didn't get Charlie Kirk killed. A gunman who believed Kirk was spreading hate did. But it's time to get serious about how organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center reflect the same poisonous idea, that conservatism and Christianity are hateful. We are seeing now that some people will take that framing and use it to rip the peaceful fabric of society apart. The post-Charlie Kirk world isn't one where we can afford to wallow. There's work to be done. It's time for us to take all the sadness and grief of this moment and channel it into culture-building energy. for Charlie and for the country we all love. The SPLC and a disturbing amount of the left would like you, and many of America's biggest brands, to believe that mainstream conservative views are akin to hate. That idea doesn't warrant any support in the ideas market, and the organizations that promote that idea don't deserve to guide our capital markets. The best time for corporate America to ditch the SPLC was years ago, before a 31-year-old husband and father lost his life after being smeared as part of a hate group. The second best time is now. And I think the one thing I could say I don't like about the article is that it seems like it's trying to hint that the SPLC is responsible in some way, like tangentially, for Charlie Kirk's death. And I don't believe that unless it comes out that the killer actually said, like, you know, that he used the SPLC to go after Charlie Kirk. Then, okay, yeah, fine, you can say it at that point. But right now I'm like, I haven't seen that, even though this group sucks. But they were for, like, the Steve Scalise shooting. I think that guy might have been set up, or not set up, but he might have been influenced, is the word I'm looking for, by the SPLC. But there was another guy that went there, or I'm trying to think. No, that's something else. Never mind. But yeah, the SPLC is a problem. We'll just leave it at that. So, in that case, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Do you agree with that or not? You know, and of course, we'll leave it with the stupid fist. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.